live tonight. Yeah, we'll see how long we're gonna go. I had a good dinner and stuff like that tonight, and so yeah, I'm always super excited to tune in, hang out, get to say what's up to you guys. I dropped the stream title. In the description. There's a stream title. I flipped comments on. Um, I don't think I need to make a thumbnail, but I am gonna open up this stream in a separate tab, put a poll up, and then yeah, we'll get going. Whoops. There's me again. And happy Friday, I guess, first and foremost to everybody. You know, it's always one of those Friday streams, Friday days, days, baby. You know, you get to hang out a little bit. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, and if you're coming in, feel free to like the stream, subscribe if you guys like hanging out and all that stuff. Yeah, yeah. And so I think that it's a good time to reevaluate geopolitics. I just dropped a poll in chat. I think, you know, if YouTube's gonna let me put that one up, yeah, heck yeah, guys, we got a poll going. So that's always very exciting. Always very exciting when we got a poll going. I got glasses on, so I can be really gross to you guys and lean in super close and be like, hey, everybody, it's Old Man Duck. Old Man Duck has decided to log in to do a YouTube stream. Old Man Duck has given his Fridays once more. Old Man Duck has not just given his Fridays, but perhaps his only chance to feel like a young man again. Pay no attention to the gross man on your screen. We're doing geopolitics and domestic issues. Politics, as it were. Really commit to the bit there, dear boy. First person Victoria. You're going snow skiing tonight. Heck yeah, brother. Heck yeah, brother. Don't French fry when you're supposed to hot dog now. That's very cool. It's very cool. You know who probably likes skiing? Epstein, because rich guys like skiing. I'll tell you my ski story if you want, just while you're hanging out. I don't know if you're gonna chill for a bit. I saw you over at that other political streamer's. You know, I don't know what she was saying. She was speaking some nonsense, but whatever. Whatever. I just want to see the folks successful. No, I went skiing with my friend. My buddy is from Canada originally, and he used to go skiing all the time. And so he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go up in Arizona. You kind of drive a few miles north and a few hours." And so we went skiing, and you know, I went down this one hill that was like a single black diamond. It wasn't like too steep or anything, but it wasn't very groomed. And I didn't know how to slow down or stop, and I almost hit like 3 or 4 trees when I was going down. So I just ended up going to the ski lodge and getting drunk because I wasn't driving. Yeah, that was the one, Kentucky girl. I don't know what she was talking about. Whatever. Whatever. We ain't being petty. We ain't doing it like that. You know how it is. You know, there's this small form of like mental and physical synergy during like high risk athletics. I used to get it a little bit when I wrestled or playing football with my friends. Like if we were like actually playing football, being competitive and stuff. But it's like this feeling where you can kind of sense where you are and what it's like and what's going to make a difference and what you should do in a moment. And so I think there's like this small sense of with just like the, I don't know, this YouTube lifestyle. You guys know how it is a little bit. You guys know how it is with this YouTube lifestyle. I just like you know, taking a step back, you know, maybe throwing a shout out to Pete Buttigieg, Daddy Trump, all my friends and family out there, and saying, hey folks, we got stuff to do. We got friendships to repair, you know? My main lady, my main girl, Kamala Harris, wasn't in the freaking White House when she should have been. And so now I don't know what's going on, folks. Hell yeah, brother. Yeah, you know? And so the day after the election, when I got done crying, my liberal tears because Kamala Harris lost, I thought back to the ballot box that I went to, this small little Mormon church in Arizona. And I thought to myself, well, you know, there will be a day where someone's going to be, cranking it in the bushes, and ain't no government on earth is going to stop that feller. Ain't nobody on earth. Hello, heart emoji person. Great to see you. Happy Friday to everybody. Happy Friday. If anybody's watching this in the Middle East, Asia, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, anywhere else, I guess it would be happy Saturday. Happy Saturday already. I got to blend my daytime, nighttime sort of zones for the global audience. You know, influencers like me really attract global audiences most of the time. So, you know, I think that's really important. Yeah, it's really important. Man, only one person voted on that poll. If you guys didn't like that question, I mean, let me know. I put a hot dog water. Hot dog water was one of the options. So, you know, if we got 5 people watching, we should have gotten 5 votes. But no offense, that's just my opinion, dude. No offense, Nar. Highway run. What the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here. Oh, 'cause I'm a freak. 'Cause I'm a weirdo. You know, early YouTube had like Cancer and AIDS from those mashup songs. They were good, dude. I'm not complaining. Like, I don't think people should have like, you know, that rye whiskey or like champagne, taste on a, shotgun Bud Light diet, budget or whatever. But it's just also crazy because, you think social media would lead to human flourishing and potential a little bit, and it just never operated. It never became. People wanted to treat people like Vladimir Putin and President Xi and President Biden and President Trump like they were being pundits. And it's like, no, right? You know, your guys' job is you're going to have the respect of some people in your state, and then everyone else is going to tell you to go frick yourself. Go frick yourself royally. Right? And so it's just one of those things where it's like, if you guys couldn't figure out your own business and politics on social media, and then you're expecting high culture, you're expecting Kanye West and Yeezys and stuff to come back out of it, that's bologna sandwiches. That's bologna. That's bolognese, folks. Let's get the glasses off. Let's get some light in here. Let's get some air in. I'm going to go through some of these comments. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you guys want to double tap, like the stream and stuff, that's cool. Appreciate y'all. We going snow skiing tonight. Thanks, Victoria. Victoria, the place or the person name, not really my business, but that should be fun. I've never been skiing, but yeah, it'd be cool. I live in the desert. I'm in Arizona, so like there are places that you can go skiing, but not that many. Everything's Bologna. Caleb, that's something I would expect you to say. And I think if you stay on that track, you're gonna get someplace good. If you start running into like 4chan and Reddit, you probably want to back out and go the other direction, but I would say keep on it as long as you can, dude. No offense. Oh, snap, dude. Oh, it was a major person for the March Against Monsanto in your province. Yeah, that's like the place you live. And so our social media page was shut down. Cool. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Yeah, I think Monsanto's one who very much pushed the lines, right? I understand how they managed their business and why they did. And then they very much pushed the line. I think it's deeply appropriate to have civil engagement, civil society that's capable of responding politically. Yeah, and like speaking of Reddit too, I one of the big stories that was on Reddit Vegan a while back was this chick that busted into like a Northern California chicken plant. It was like Davis or Oakland or something like that. I forgot where. Yeah, but like Ro Khanna, I think, stepped up and was like, don't if I remember, I don't remember all the details, but politicians have to be super careful in those situations because you can't have people advocating breaking the law, and you also in a democracy, as unethical as that behavior is, you don't want 1,000 people thinking oh well, maybe I can go break into the power plant or something like that. So it's just my opinion about some of this stuff. Just my opinion. Just my opinion about some of this stuff. I don't know. No offense. But I think that if you believe that my own opinion is if you can have like for organization and stuff, if you can have a democracy, and it sounds like you've been closer, you probably have way more information, knowledge, the people, the issues and stuff like that inside out. But I just think if you can have a democracy that cares about this stuff immensely, in a way that also doesn't conflict with the law, right? Then that's an equal sum. That's an equal sum type option. It gives the political process perhaps something more tangible to build with and build upon. And so it's obviously like that's a million miles away, I think, from having a social media page or, if people want to go and you say, there's 100 of us and 10 of us are like willing to get arrested for blocking like the driveway or something. And over the course of a decade, this is going to happen over like 3 or 4 days or something. Like that's the scope. It's very expensive. It's annoying. It gets publicity and stuff like that. Like I think that is within what a democracy is and does. I think that's that civil disobedience where people are protesting expediency a little bit. I didn't take offense. I was kind of confused what you mean. I'm on the right path. Yeah, just regarding the Bologna statement. And chat, if you guys want to scroll up, you can see Caleb was talking baloney. It came up earlier in the stream. And so, yeah, I just think that if you're starting to look for, the baloney man, you find, if you've ever drifted into Mustard Road and Pickletown, a lot of the stuff in the world, I would say, is analogous to that. It's analogous. It's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all to kind of be that and have that way about you. Have the way about you, But I'm a creep. Yes, I'm a weirdo. What the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here. Oh, the government recognized it is carcinogenic, yet refused to even bring GMO labeling. We successfully bypassed the government and implemented non-GMO project verified companies can opt in and get in. Cool. Let me read that one more time. That's cool. So real story, real solution and stuff. Our government recognized it as carcinogenic, yet refused to even bring in GMO labeling. We successfully bypassed the government and implemented non-GMO project verified companies can opt in and get non-GMO certification. Cool. Yeah, I understand that. That's cool. And that's a lot of awareness, right? I imagine that outcome, it sounds like it is rooted in science. There's science that is focusing on producing information for consumer protection. And I know it's not that sexy or exciting, but what a waypoint, right? What a like, kind of laying down the challenge or, because now you do have, you're going to have private sector companies that are also looking at like, whatever it is, they're going to wonder who's in office to either roll this back or push it forward, find the next effective thing that actually provides that fair guide rail for business. Because there's going to be CEOs as well, right? There's going to be board of directors and groups of investors that think this is the right course this is how you manage a business if you know the information. And they're also not going to want, like, that group of people, that subset's not going to want, like reversions to the past or something like that. Oh. Owie, owie. Anybody have a good week? I don't know if I can ask you guys that. I don't know. It's Friday. Everybody's week on, people used to ask that all the time. Everybody's week on social media is like the same. Hey, honey, did you have a good day at school today? Did you have a good day at school? No, Dad. I was on social media all day. Okay. Cool. Dope. Dope fresh. Dope fresh. Do 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 do. Owie. Yeah, I wish, I think it's cool when Democrats use consumer protection and uh, these issues because they have to pass like a policy agenda or something. And then they use, and then they're able to use these things to gain traction in further elections. Like, I think that's a good thing because that also creates the opportunity for the other side. If you take place that victory in a point in time, you won something, fine. It means the other side had an opportunity to use their voice prior to this, and then they'll have the opportunity afterwards as well. And so that's really cool, right? I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great thing when, we see people working together and doing so because they want a risky business that change back into politics. That's the main thing, dude. Yeah, that's the main thing, bro. No offense, man. Yeah, dude, algorithm sucks tonight, dude. But yeah, no offense. No offense about much of that stuff. If I can just be completely honest, I also think like the starter kit for having affected municipal elections or doing a great job to begin with, is probably like this small. It is this sort of small facet of you have politicians that have ambition to work outside of their district, but they also know the people they're representing and they know what's possible, right? So they're grounded in what the political reality is, and then they shape their vision, almost their political religion and ideology around this. And like a great example, of course, Barack Obama, right, who learned Illinois and Chicago inside out. And, as a result, he was able to leverage that up to the highest office of the land, which is the office of the presidency. Huge victory. And, people that are anti-Obama or just like patently flat anti-Democrat, it's like, okay, well, these are really important big policy issues as well. And so if I wish I could admit, at least in midterms or something like this, that I have conservative biases, and if I wanted to tell you that, like, I'm willing to even sometimes vote and entertain these ideas, that my own state doesn't have the representation I want, right? Like in Arizona, who knows? Ruben Gallego, like, the guy's got a voice, the guy's an absolute boombox and stuff like this. He maybe is super ambitious, but in the scheme of the United States story, I could live without Ruben Gallego, right? I've never worked with him personally. I've got no particular affinity or reason to vote Ruben Gallego, and yet I did, but it didn't need to be that way. If you guys had another John McCain sort of style Republican or something, somebody that was going to oppose Trump, but also, who knows? You want to ship a tax rebate back to the American people, and you can explain why, right? You can explain why, I get this surprise 1-year tax credit and then I get my money back in my paycheck, and you can explain why that makes sense. I maybe would have voted for that guy. You're not a bigot, you're not anti-trans, you're not anti-gay, you're anti-racist, you're not talking about a bunch of crazy stuff about, buying Northrop Grumman, you don't want to like buy them, Chinese manufacturing bots or something on my money, and you're not going to explain how or why that's the course of action we're taking. Like that stuff's all stupid. Stuff's all really stupid, you know? Whatever's. So Victoria, I don't know if you're still here, but I wonder if you like how you feel about liberalism. Like I'm honestly curious if how you feel about like either liberalism or capitalism in general. Um, because I can see it both ways, right? I could see it that, there's some sort of value that's just produced and that's how you produce the product. But I could also, I could see it the other way too, right? Like I don't know. I don't have opinions or something like that. Owie. So heavy, all these topics. Donald Trump's crashing out in Iran, though, seriously, big time, though. He did crash out. Can you imagine if one of your friends was like, "Yo, bro, I want to throw a birthday party. I want to throw a birthday party and a rave for my buddy." And so they send you like the Facebook invite or whatever for this birthday party, and you show up and they're like partying hard. It's the day of the party, you show up, they're partying hard, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm out. That was fun. That was cool. I drank my fill of Natty Light, and boy, did we listened to some loud music and we danced, and that one guy jumped in the pool, right? And we thought it was funny. But I'm done with this party thing. And then you show up to work and all your friends are missing. Nobody's at work. Nobody's at school. So you text them and they're like, "Yeah, come over to John's. Let me tell you what's been going on," or whatever. And so then you go over there and they're still partying, same birthday party, and you're like, "Whoa, why didn't you guys invite me again?" They're like, "You already got the Facebook invite." That's kind of what the Iran war is like. It's not even a party, right? Because they killed a bunch of kids, destroyed a bunch of stuff, asked other people to participate in the destroying and the killing and all this other stuff. That's my opinion. That's my 2 cents about it. They wanted to do a party and then they kept partying. And they're not done partying yet. They're not done partying yet. Traditional old school liberalism was great. I would have been called a classical liberal 30 years ago. Today in Canada, the Liberal Party is anti-free speech, anti-entrepreneurial, anti-self-defense. Whoa. Yeah, I know you guys got like pronoun laws. There's a bunch of laws about that kind of stuff. I've heard about them being anti all this stuff. Yeah, I'm sort of anti self-defense personally, but that's not my politics. Like in the US, I think, I'm sure Canada is similar to us in this one regard that you guys have different provinces, and just depending on the city you're in, people probably have different opinions. That's probably also true. Like, isn't like Montreal used to be your guys' like AI capital of of Canada, one of the biggest AI capitals in North America too, if I recall. You'd have San Francisco, Montreal, New York, all mentioned together. What's up, John Merston? Good to see you. I don't know if I'm qualified to give advice and if this is a serious issue, but yeah, let's go for it. Let's do it. What's up, John Marston? Are we having a chat? Cool. Heck yeah, dude. Heck yeah, brother. Yeah, the advice I don't typically help with is if you or someone you know got pregnant. I can't help with both the moral or the medical or just lifestyle, parenting implications of that choice. Types of things I can help with are typically politics, but we'll see. Um, oh, word, John. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that other one back there. Yeah, I mean, if I got cranked by a dude, and yeah, it was what I expected, but maybe not in all the ways that it was expected. Maybe the thing that I would probably start with was, um, yeah, there's probably a physiological and psychological component of what happened, irrespective of whether or not it was consensual or not. But yeah, I think typically in some case, there's some level of testing for security and things, but I'm not no expert in that topic. And then the other one that I would recommend is, yeah, of course, creating that healthy boundary in space and distance, I think. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, I don't think you have to be one way or another, or all the ways, or some ways, or none of the ways, right? None of those things. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I could help you out a little bit more with whatever it is that you're thinking on. Thinking about thinking and all this other stuff. Thinking about thinking and all this other stuff. Yeah, so good luck. Good luck. Maybe you can try one of those lady relationship channels. I don't want to undermine or miss the importance of the life event you're going through. But yeah, I for sure would say, yeah, of course, medical testing, and then beyond that, those healthy relationship boundaries are always great advice, right? Always great advice. Yeah, cool. I mean, yeah, I think that yeah, yeah, just kind of the same advice all the time and stuff. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, all right, that's cool. You're paying. You know, I think the more you pay into the narratives that you want, the narrative of, the love two men shared, right? I think it's healthy because maybe you're, tacitly, of course, I don't know, but maybe you're trying to escape like the, what do they call it, slut shaming or something. So for sure, that's an important one. Maybe you're also not comfortable with the labels like monogamous or polyamorous. You're maybe not happy with the other labels, such as heterosexual, bisexual, polyamorous. You know, yeah. So, so yeah, I think you'll be okay. But I don't know. I don't know the situation at all, so I wouldn't listen to my advice there. In Canada, we do not have castle law. If someone breaks into your home, you could be criminally charged for defending your property and protecting yourself. Cool. Cool. Yeah, Arizona's kind of the opposite. Arizona, everybody's got firearms and stuff like that. It's been that way because it was the Wild West, Arizona largely populated with mining towns. And so if you didn't have U.S. Marshals or sheriffs or any other ordained law enforcement officials, it was people's job. We became a state in 1849, if I recall correctly, and so it's just kind of been that way. Yeah. Do, 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 do. Oh man, I didn't do anything today. I didn't do anything. Philosophize everywhere. That would be a cool tagline. Somebody who's read a couple pages of a lot of different books. I think it's just interesting to think about things, right? Having other things to think about is still very important. Problem test, very important problem test. Yeah. So, but the expectations we put on ourselves in like a society, also important. Also important. With a little bit of chicken fried, cold beer on a Friday night, pair of jeans that looks just right, with the radio on. 901 today. Oh, the fear in my mother's eyes. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Oh. All right, we're gonna fix the stream real quick. I'm putting my mic in. Can you guys hear my mic? Does this sound? I don't know if audio is a little different or better or worse than it was before. Hopefully it's okay. Hopefully it's okay. But yeah. Bam, 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 bam. Welcome to Ducks Y. Welcome to Ducks Y. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. There's this old difficulty of tolerance test by Thomas Scanlon wrote it. John Stuart Mill wrote about it as well. John Stuart Mill was, I think, more deeply concerned with free speech and truth. That's one of the interesting trends. It wasn't a trend, but it was a philosophical through line. From like the post-Enlightenment period, early to like late Enlightenment, into the modern scientific and industrial revolution, modern pragmatism and epistemology and stuff. But yeah, just how people come together to talk about things and create truth. So John Stuart Mill mentioned that if one person's opinion was missing, then you'd be no less justified talking about it. And with like Habermas and stuff like that. Hey, what up, Kian? That's a cool username. It reminds me of an Irish username. But chairs, I generally agree. Generally would agree with chairs. Generally would agree with chairs. Chairs. Not in Alberta. Oh, heck yeah, we got a couple Canucks here. Yes, chairs. Heck yeah, we got 2 folks with chairs. That's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. With a little bit of chicken fried, cold beer on a Friday night, pair of jeans that fits just right, turn the radio on, 901s that died. Know the love in my mother's eyes, the pair of jeans that fits just right, turn the radio on. We gotta flip the order around on this politics stuff, guys. People used to say flip the script. I think that's one of the big things that I've been missing. Mega bloodbath debates. I just got a stream alert for one of my buddies' channels. Trying to compete, trying to tear me down, folks. I don't think that's going to work. Not today. Hey, Dats, man, I'm considering moving to Alberta. You guys, chat's talking right now. Yeah. And so you'd think that we should have maybe started with the news, but we can start with this simple fact that Donald Trump still is the person. He's the one person in the United States who was elected to the office of the president, and then he himself went back in time and decided that he wanted to threaten the world. And this is just remarkable because from the U.S. perspective, when we do have this slightly Orientalist mindset, this means that when we see a place like Iran or a leader like Vladimir Putin, we think of China, there might be some black boxes, there might be some ambiguity. And we believe that diplomacy should be the platform to actually, I personally believe, Diplomacy is the platform to sort of close those gaps, And so this is one of the biggest challenges. Hey, what's up, Soldier for Christ and Dazman? Good to see you guys. Welcome to the stream. And so with this Orientalist sort of idea, it's not like saying that we should be leftists by any stretch. It's the opposite. It's that we should actually embrace what we know and can know from the American position. We should know our own strategy. We should know our own resources, and we should know the best way to democratically serve the needs of a people. And this is the opposite of what Donald Trump did. Donald Trump came in from this beautiful position, everything the United States has built, and instead of stewardship, instead of offering to lead people towards a better outcome, he said, no, we're going to go blow up the world. We're going to blow up the world. We're going to use the simplest, most selfish, myopic, self-centered methods that we have. And he did this before he was even in office, before the inauguration. Republicans and Democrats are two sides of the same coin. Yeah. And so I think, right, because you have individual politicians, you can also, you should be able to assess the performance of an entire Congress. I think a lot of people would say that Kamala Harris did a great job whipping Congress. She didn't do that much because Joe Biden was an effective leader. Things in the country were just going well. But while she was, working behind the scenes or taking a role up front in ensuring that the national security priorities that we had and administrative priorities were being fulfilled by Congress, without taking away anyone's right to vote, anyone's right to be represented directly by the person that they voted for. Hey, thanks, Flowers for Algernon. That's a cool name too. I like ducks too. Ducks are good animals, cool animals, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And so from this position then where we talk about what was possible versus what is, it's remarkable that we saw the United States position somehow crumble in such a remarkable and expeditious fashion. An expeditious fashion for sure. Sometimes, whatever, I don't know. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. And I think the main issue is that people saw Donald Trump and wanted to see him acting as a pundit. People wanted to see the president and many presidents, many people acting as political pundits, as cultural commentators, versus as people who legislate, as people who make policy decisions, and as people who have some form of moral leadership just from the office that they're sitting in. And so it's really deeply a problematic thing is that if you actually go outside of like this channel, you go to other YouTube, and go do it, right? But you'll see that people are so happy to take when it is given to them. And there's no consideration about whether it's even for their interest. If I gave a 21-year-old a private jet and $1 billion and, it's some dude who's a horn dog, what do you think he's going to go do? He's going to take his private jet and $1 billion and go horn dog all over the place. And, a chick would do the same exact thing. You're 21, you get $1 billion in a private jet. Doesn't matter who you are. Your identity doesn't matter. If that is psychologically your sort of space and habit. And so Donald Trump played into the worst aspects of the United States. It played into people who impulsively wanted to take more versus planning their next steps. Instead of asking people to kind of watch my back, ask what you're ready for, ask what you're good with. He wanted people to just make policies that proposedly took from brown and mysterious Asian people all over the world and put it in the United States coffers. And the fact that this is seen as punditry versus real life is absolutely insane. The worst form of this, I think, was Charlie Kirk. You guys know Charlie Kirk was talking all about the time that the Epstein files were being released. And to me, the truth of it is that Charlie Kirk was an idiot. Charlie Kirk was both uneducated, he wasn't a nice person, he was ignorant, and he was dangerously impulsive. He was an immature young man with no education whatsoever. And this is very similar because what was Jeff Epstein? Jeff Epstein was a ped, right? Jeff Epstein was a predator ped. And so when you basically unwrap it down and say that, Epstein was this billionaire, blah, 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 and he did this thing that you're not allowed to do ever in any circumstance. It's kind of the same thing, right? You reimagine who Jeffrey Epstein is. Well, a lot of people in the world just saw that, well, this guy's not committing himself to a deliberative democracy. He's not actually caring about people's autonomy, their moral worth as a person. And it's pretty crazy. Hey, what's up, J Horde 1203? Cool. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe you can find a boyfriend. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. Yeah. I don't, I think, what is it? The dating apps are Bumble and Grindr and all this other stuff, right? I think those are the ones. Those are the ones, aren't they? I think so. Yeah. And so you lose out on narratives. You lose out on the important stories. When people like Charlie Kirk say that Martin Luther King didn't matter, it's not just that, it's that there's millions of ordinary stories. There's also people like Harvey Milk in the US, the first openly gay US mayor, New York City, who was assassinated. And so when you actually go back and imagine that social spaces became political spaces, that business class and blue collar workers became political activists and participants, and this isn't for that mysterious of a reason. It's actually a very clear reason. The reason is that the mannerisms of the political system and the political process provided no other avenue for people of color and people of different sexual persuasions to participate and live in a democracy. So you get activism. Now, if you ask me, I don't think that Make America Great is anything like this. We maybe would zoom into Donald Trump and say that, well, if you are predisposed to blowing up Cuba for no other reason than it's an island close to you that you do not control, and you're doing this while you have all the cards in your hands, this is nothing but a bully pulpit. It's not only that, it's a murderer, someone who stated his intention to murder innocent people prior to being in office, now living out his sick, twisted, demented political fantasy on the geopolitical stage. And this is absolutely absurd. I think it's one thing to wish people that get the black lung and crawl down into mines to mine coal can keep their job. It's another thing to obfuscate the truth that there is such a thing as economic disruption. Economic disruption does come from energy. Yes, there may be the case. It may be the case that there's a political process to determine where the solution comes from. But to imagine that the types of wishes an economic person in the United States has, and economic personhood, economic inclusion, having economic rights in the United States, is totally unlike the more fundamental and base layers of civil rights is absurd. And then to pretend that what someone does or thinks after they have a sausage McSandwich, and they decide they hate Muslims and hate Iran, these ideas that Charlie Kirk advocated for vigorously over his career, playing into the most trollish and truly the most murderous and violent aspects and perspectives of the United States, is absolutely absurd. And so game over, game over. There's been no good talking points that have come from MAGA, no good talking points that have come from Donald Trump and the Republicans. Hey, what's up, everybody that's joining? We've got Dasman, Brianna Zelinko, good to see you too. USA and Dasman again. Cool. Thanks, guys. If you guys want to double tap, like the stream, it's appreciated. Yeah, and the United States is a representative republic. This is really important because it doesn't matter make, shape, sizes. It doesn't matter the opportunities you had or did not have. What does matter is having shared respect for each other and making that into something that's more meaningful. A republic allows you to do that because you have someone that you voted for to represent you. You should know going into it that you're going to lose sometimes. You are not totally in control of your political fate in the United States. And part of this is because you do have majoritarian policies in most of the cases. And in many cases, sort of the veto power of the president is subservient to the actual policy demands that are passed by Congress. And we should think this relates back out to the world in some extent. And so democracies, and so the sort of, the system of government of a democracy versus a republic, it's very important. And there's also a fine-grained distinction that can exist. The fine-grained distinction that can exist is in a democracy, a true democracy, you're supposed to be responsible for social education, political education. Perhaps you're supposed to be a little more responsible with your economic throughput. And this may also turn the sort of other way in that if there's competitive demands, this is not pushed up to a federal government nearly as quickly or expediently. In a democracy, a pure democracy, you maybe would expect that corruption exists. This is what Plato predicted all the way back in the Republic. Plato said that if you have a true democracy, you'll either have this really well-functioning system and it'll be decent. People will be hyper engaged. They'll be hyper aware of what their fellow constituents are doing and care about. You'll also have it be the case that when you have a corrupt democracy, people will care more about softness, luxury. They'll care more about all of this negative stuff. And so, yeah, and maybe this is an important distinction because if we go back to someone like Harvey Milk or Martin Luther King Jr. or Malcolm X, if we go back to early pioneers in U.S. education, small, much smaller cities in Florida looking to get the same sort of accessibility that you're getting out of private universities in the North. They were aware of all this. They were also aware of the needs of children at that time. And so what a wild gap. And tell me again, just while I'm talking, where does Charlie Kirk or Donald Trump come in on this? I don't remember. If you ask me, I think it was the disruptive person. It was the person throwing a hissy fit, a tantrum. And it was the person that in the United States, we allowed ourselves to not give the same chance, and also not compete with effectively. How embarrassing. We are not living in a world where Kamala Harris was president. We are not living in a world where we have a Secretary of State who could actually engage in a useful conversation with Russia. We're not living in a world where there's something that is perhaps more enduring and doing in the best world, in the best possible world, soothing over, creating a Band-Aid. What it's doing is obfuscating the sense of time. And this is wild because we are anti-authoritarian in the United States. In the United States, by and large, believe what you want, but we do not want people taking away others' right to vote, right to speak, right to work, right to live, right to be who they are. And so we will probably, I may not be alive, very sadly, in a world where Russia and the United States have a shared cosmopolitan identity. I don't know why, it sounds very stupid to me, but the idea that there's not very first and foremost people in Russia who are having experiences like Americans are, who have suffering in a society like Americans, who see the world, are educated, more educated than their station, more capable than their station, and want to make a contribution. And they want to plan their approach to this. They want to, intellectualize it. They want to make it philosophical, make it religious, just like anywhere else. And the idea that we have a Donald Trump in the White House who is now saying that not only do we hate Iranians for their system for no other reason, something he's proven by going beyond his political objective of dismantling the nuclear program, but we also now have the same exact Donald Trump telling us that, well, the world has to pay our taxes. And meanwhile, what we're supposed to be planning on doing is getting the poorest, the worst off people signed up for the military. So when it is the case in time that, old evil Lavrov and Putin wants you to go down and, you get in your M4 Sherman or whatever it is, you get in your H-64 Black Hawk with, stealth paint, material science BS. And you're supposed to somehow embody that, well, Trump's narrative doesn't imply that he's trying to disrupt other people's lives. I can't believe it. MAGA gets to believe and say what they want, but in the United States, in my country, we put things back where we found them. You wanted to take things out of the box. Guess where they go at the end of the day? Back in the box. And if you're taking things out that you didn't even know where they come from, guess what you do? Well, you're going to go looking. You're going to get out your little magnifying glass. And before I have my day, before I go into my own oak box, before my body's burned and you spread my ashes out in the Sonoran Desert or frickin' Pacific Ocean or whatever it is, you're going to get that magnifying glass out and you're going to go find all of my stuff, all of my shit that you didn't want to look for in the first place and put it back in the fucking box. There's not a single platform that exists without compassion, without honesty, without respect. And you think Donald Trump gains respect from world leaders by acting like this petulant little child, pretending, implying that he's got some greater source of intelligence. Meanwhile, we see that this Marco Rubio character does one single thing. He goes into a place and he plays the little clown playbook that Donald Trump wanted him to play. The little clown playbook that Donald Trump wanted him to play. What an absurdity. You guys got people like Patrick Bet David what does he do? He says, I can sell you a thermos. I can sell you a hat. And if I can go and take Donald Trump and sell you a sweatshirt, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you to spend my time with me. And this is the crazy thing. All the millionaires and billionaires that I've ever worked with and talked to, they all have this different idea in their head about the way the United States works. Get rid of it. And Marco Rubio, for his part, back when I was a boy, my dad got me this canoe, and, we were canoeing around all the time in Florida. And, I remember my mother was from Puerto Rico, and, she used to tell me about all the oppressed people in Cuba. And so, now that we got Donald Trump in the White House, I just kind of want to go back and get in my canoe, and, we're going to go make policy all over the world. Get out of here. That's not American. That's not funny. I could retell that exact same story. I could retell every single campaign story in a way that wasn't completely full of shit and in the gutter. This is crazy, right? There's a term for this in the adult film industry that I've heard. Have you guys heard the term CUM walk? Right? You're a buff chick, you're a buff dude, and you get whatever. You get totally blasted, right? You get blasted in the face with some man love. And then, you fall asleep, you forget about it. Everybody's tired, I guess. Everybody's tired, and so you have to walk home. So this is Donald Trump and MAGA's massive CUM walk. But it's not the end of it. It's not the end of it, because this was not consensual. This was not consensual, right? That's not analogous, obviously, because if you're controlling the largest military of the United States, what do you think this is? What do you think this is? No, I'm in Arizona. I've worked in Canada. I've been to Canada a couple times, but I'm not. I'm in Arizona. I'm an American. I'm an American. I'm an American. I'm an American. You gotta lean it all the way out, and you just start there, right? You start there, and then you redo it and redo it and redo it and redo it. Pretty soon you're a fluffy boy. Quite fluffy. Have some fun. Where are the documents? I left them in my lunchbox. But I had some ideas for you before we go. Before you get started, brother. They're in the lunchbox. I can tell you my ideas, but I'll tell you whatever, but they're in the lunchbox. Where are the documents? They're in the lunchbox. Go back to Canada. I'm not Canadian. I already told you guys that. Yeah. I have problems with the hatred of any people on YouTube. You guys say, look, I will make 100 friends and one enemy, because it's easier to say I hate a PDF, a pedo, a pred, than to say, well, I don't understand the psychology. I understand you're hurting someone immensely, and I understand enormously that you're breaking the law. Those are both true things. But to say that you hate that person, seems incomplete. But you have your friendship in the chat for that moment. So congratulations. Me too, Livy. That's why I don't like Biden. I like Joe Biden. Go to hell then. What's up, everybody? We got Tech. We got David. We got Dazman Can again. We got Dylan. Dylon again. We got Gary again. Let's see. We got David again. Yeah, if you guys are Demon Rat, never. We got Nolan Maxwell again. We got Leviton Pigeon 7. Oh, 7 Gator. What's up, dude? Hey, good to see you. You're Midwestern. My family's from the Midwest, right? Yeah, I got family all over the Midwest still. I got family from Ohio and Chicago, Illinois. Mostly the suburbs. Yeah, I don't, I mean, that doesn't sound like an informed opinion. I think saying that these are people that didn't support your political interest, it's easier to make your own political point, right? Than to, in this case, right? Like if I was Andrew Tate, I would say, well, you're being the female in that situation, whatever he says. He says chud stuff like that, but you're being a female if you come in and you say, well, and that's not even right, but like it's not even close to right. But if you say something like, well, Clinton and Biden were ped preds, right? Well, I understand that you can disagree with a large part of their policies. You can not like neoliberalism. You can say that, oh, well, America has gotten worse since then. But that doesn't say anything about where they were, right? Your punditry doesn't really have the effective outcome that it does. Grizzly Adams, cool. Every point you made is lost. LMFAO isn't the... Yeah, we got some people defending Joe Biden from the Epstein stuff, all kinds of cool stuff. Where are you from, brother? Where are you from? Yeah, we're trying to clean up these Americans. As an American, I think that's appropriate. Yeah, if you want some righteous cosmopolitan hatred of other people, you got to really earn it, right? Really big systems, people just like you. Those are the 2 points I'd point you towards. You know, you want to say I don't like French people for some reason or whatever, or I don't like the British. You know, you want to say I'm not a fan of the Germans. You don't like Nordics at all. You know, whatever. Who else? Italians, maybe. You know, you don't like Mexico or Mexicans, or you don't like Canada and Canadians or whatever. You don't like Chinese. Oh, snap. Life with Ron. What up? Good to see you. You got the cool tag and username. Happy Friday. Hopefully you're having a good night. This is my first time doing this, so yeah. I am a 36-year-old male political discourse streamer. I voted Democrat most of my life. Yeah. And yeah, my main goal right now is I'm working on building a beyond 111 subscribers. So very excited about all this stuff. Watch it, feller. What a freak. You guys believe in Jesus? We got Slingstone. I'm a former Catholic, so I'm currently a Buddhist atheist, but I love theology. I love all that kind of stuff. Pam Bondi. Yeah. I was talking a lot about supporting women's rights the other day. You know, and the reason being is that, well, you know, anytime Trump, you know, you have a male in society set up women to be unsuccessful, right? You know, Pam Bondi building detention centers, spending taxpayer dollars, very unpopular ICE organization. You know, oftentimes you'll have people stand up and say, well, it's because she was a woman that it didn't work or it failed. You know, and they suddenly forget that you have, you know, DHS counterparts and all this other BS and whatever. So why do you vote Dem? I bet you have no idea why. I have some idea. About why. Yeah, my main reason for voting Democrat is that I believe the policy outcomes that support a social safety net are incredibly important for people in the U.S. The U.S. was set up to be a very successful capitalist economy. Most people agree about that. And it was also set up to allow people this ability to develop and learn over time in life and stuff like this. But it wasn't set up to always take care of people's needs. And so I think it's easy to see CEOs on Wall Street immediately next to people like, you know, whatever. You know, it's like, yeah, you're going to bump into that stuff eventually in your own life, I would imagine, you know? And so this is another one of those cool things is that like, okay, so maybe you didn't need Obamacare, but when I was in college, I got to stay on my dad's insurance in college because of Obamacare, right? This was the first time in my life I saw democratic politics in the US actually working. And so maybe you don't like exchange-based systems, but I certainly learned what that is. I learned what a free market actually is eventually, partially because of Obamacare. It wasn't just my time in sort of like fintech or you know, technology or whatever it was, like all this other, you know, really good, yucky stuff, you know, so. But yeah, you can look at industries and markets and stuff like that or whatever, I don't know. I don't know. Conservatives would crucify Jesus today. Yeah, we lost sight of like real conservative values. I'm just gonna go up and say hi to some people because I was just talking for a little bit. He loves open borders, counterfeit Morningstar. Yeah, it's a Star David. I like Morningstar Farms too. Levitating pigeon, not even close to the same bird. One side protects PDF and yeah, it's okay. That's kind of cool. Do you support? Hey, what's up, PTP89? Yeah, I'm. If you're asking if I'm pro-choice, I am pro-choice. I think when you look at the way the argument ended up developing in the United States, and if you were to actually read, I don't know if you've. I don't want to assume about you, but if you've read Dobbs versus Jackson, I mean, it's a case that the Supreme Court probably shouldn't have accepted. And in the case that they did accept it, it's a very spurious ruling, right? They take like very legal prone rhetoric and stuff like this, and you know, whatever. It's like absurd nonsense or whatever, you know. So the right has a counterfeit Jesus. Yeah. Donald Trump, they've had their heyday, and I think the cultural collapse of MAGA is just that at some point you have to reconcile why all the stuff you said is now coming back down to like a really bad measurable outcome that's killing people in the United States and around the world. It's not ambiguous at all. Nikki Haley. I remember Nikki Haley a little bit. Yeah. You know, these were equally insane politicians. You know, the conservative movement didn't ask for help. They didn't say, hey, we're going to go back and we're going to read some political science texts, political theory texts. They did the Tea Party. You know, you did what your billionaires thought and wanted you to do. And maybe there's some good grounding logic for it, but I don't see it. Not really. You were not in Obamacare because of your dad's insurance. Yeah, Obamacare extended coverage until age 25. So thank you for the question. But that's not accurate, right? So this was, it used to be 21 or 22, I think. You could stay on your dad's insurance, and under Obamacare, it was 25. Yeah. And my parents were divorced, but my dad had better insurance. So I'm a child of divorce, and I was on Obamacare. So now you know two things about me. I was a child of divorce, man. Yeah, dude. Really hard, man. I was you know, when I was in school, I had a really tough time because, you know, it's just school. And then all of a sudden I was 16. And, you know, by the time I was 18, I was like busy banging hot chicks and stuff like that. But when I was 16, I didn't know what I was going to be doing. But by 18, 19, I was banging hot chicks and I still wanted insurance, dude. So it's whatever. I don't know. In some world, that's true. He gave to a 1 trillion bailout and even appointed a lot of them to his cabinet. Cool. I only eat corn along the way. Hey, what's up, Big Duke? You never got a hot chick? Yeah. You can ask me about it. No. Yeah, I shouldn't have brought it up if I didn't want to talk about it, right? A gentleman, fellas, new manosphere red pill stuff. A gentleman never actually tells, right? Why? Because you just don't have to. So go to Reddit, right? Go to Reddit. This is what I recommend to dudes. Like if you're into buff dudes or hot chicks or whatever, you know, if you're, you know, LGBTQIA plus, so, you know, you're trans, gay, bi, straight, whatever. But on, you know, they rip OnlyFans pics and stuff and put them on Reddit, right? These chicks that are doing OF. So, you know, I don't think that's really fair. I think that's a weird thing to do. You know, people always have this weird logic about pirating stuff, this weird logic about, well, if I could pirate it so easily, then it must be fine. It must be fair, right? That's the right thing to do. But that just seems to me morally like way too intimate and like I would make no suppositions that this person enjoys, right? Obviously, there's no shame in like OF or Fansly, in my opinion, but like I would also have no sort of like qualms about saying, well, I would never just wager that this person enjoys it so much they want other people on the internet to see their stuff for free, right? Most of them post enough content on Instagram or on X or whatever, on YouTube, or they've got a Twitch account or whatever. Yeah, so if you're into like buff dudes and hot chicks, go to Reddit, man. That's how you pull some serious whale tail, bro. Zoinks. Zoinks, man. You were born in the wrong spot. Come home to Canada. You do well. I like Canada. You got a hot guy. Yeah, if you guys know any attractive fellers, and they want to talk to a normal feller about what it's like being an attractive guy, they've got proclivities one way or the other. Tell them one day that might be an appropriate conversation. It might be today even. I don't know. How would I know? I haven't thought about it. You haven't considered it. I didn't say considered. I said thought about it. I don't consider anything. I'm not considerate. But I do think. Reddit corn. No, dude. Nobody said anything about Reddit corn, dude. I'm talking about ripping IG photos, dog. Right? You're funny and intelligent. Thank you. Chat, take notice. Take notice. Right? We had somebody, I don't want to exploit this person, but we had a verified account come in, and they were like, the moment that we created together is they're like, hey, how you doing? And then this verified account also said, how you doing, or what's up? And so this is the verified, this is the, this person, how are you doing tonight, Ducks? Right? And so when you guys look at me and you say, well, Ducks is funny, he's intelligent, he's not a troll, he's very humble, actually. All right, Ducks down here. And when we think about the audience, you guys are up here. And when it comes to my extreme depth of knowledge, and you guys say I'm funny and handsome and intelligent, Vic, yes, bro. Yes. This is right. This is what I need to grow my channel, guys. We got Vic C, the most... Dude, YouTube is even blocking these hetero comments and stuff, dude. No offense. Go make me a sandwich. Hey, what's up, Native Sons? Good to see you. Good to see you. What type of sandwich do you want? I have peanut butter and jelly, and that's about it today. I got that Winco, that co-op bakery bread. Winco is one of the good bakeries if you guys are in the US. It's this giant co-op. If you guys don't have them, I know they're in the Southwest a bunch. I think they started in like Texas or New Mexico or something, right? Good place to start a grocery store. You guys are in the US. You guys don't have to start where you want to finish. You can start someplace else and then go someplace else. And then you're suddenly doing entrepreneurship. Welcome. Welcome, brother. Yeah. My brother, Squished Frog, used to go to the store every week. My brother was not named Squished Frog. I just saw Squished Frog. I'm easily distracted. YouTube should be called MAGATube. Heck no, dude. Let's see how the poll's doing, by the way. Let's see how the poll's doing. If you guys want to drop a like on the stream too, that helps. But whatever. If you guys are new here and you like subscribing, this is kind of the fun stuff. Whatever. I don't know. Yeah, hopefully it gets a little more wild and stuff like this too. That's what my goal is. It's the crunchy pathway, right? This is what people get wrong about. I don't know if you guys know really crunchy tubers who, like, when they talk, they give these things and then the chat's like, oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about. It's so crunchy down here. There's the crunch, guys. There's the crunch, everybody. There's the crunch. Let's go. I don't know if they get it wrong. I'm just, babbling and talking about it a little bit, but yeah, it's like, yeah, if you have a pathway to actually weave down into it and you can like really own it, some people might think that's not the right approach, but I think it is. I think it is. Trump needs removing. Trump needs to resign the office of the presidency. So does JD Vance, right? He needs to talk less. He needs to learn how to not start a conversation. Learn to not converse, brother. Hey, Connor. Hey, great to see you too. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here. It's good to see you. I saw your message up there. Connor and I might have had it out on the last stream a little bit, but Connor's been on the DucksY channel, one of the most valued members of the DucksY community, I would say. So happy Friday. I hope you're having a great day. I still remember that you ate lunch last stream, brother. Never heard of Rumble, and I know why. Yeah, Howard Lutnick took Rumble public via a SPAC, if I remember. And this was while he was going through cancer treatment, or right after, right before. There was some timeline there. But yeah, that's a story that's brought up about a lot of corruption. You know, this guy seems to start this social media platform. It appears he's taking market shortcuts with it. Yeah, and while you do have successful streamers, people doing kind of the shock jockey track, getting that stuff out there a little bit, you know, I think a lot of people, oh, that's crazy. That's a really fast mile time. So congratulations. Congrats. That's cool. Yeah, I never run a mile in 5 minutes, I don't think. That's really fast. But yeah, Rumble was really bad, right? Rumble was this, a platform where, you know, everything goes up and up and up and up and up. And that's not actually how the world works, as it turns out, right? There's things that do go below the surface. And if you want to find those things, it's like, yeah, that takes time. And so Howard Lutnick, you know, seemingly more innocent than some, but we don't have, like, named in the Epstein documents, you know, and so Donald Trump's little Epstein friend list, or whatever it was, you know, benefited him enormously from his political participation, and people didn't care. People didn't care that you voted for a murderer who wanted to make $1 billion for president. You know, who knows what Donald Trump's actual wishes were? I don't know. I don't care. You gave me something I don't have the ability to consider, because I'm way smarter than you, because you will never be even close to how intelligent and capable I am as a person, Mr. President. If you need something, open your dumb fucking mouth and ask, right? Maybe next time you can get down on your fucking knees and beg, bitch. That's MAGA for you. Bunch of cucks. Bunch of fire cucks. And it ends up being true or it isn't, right? It's either true or it isn't. Hey, what's up, DeFreak? Good to see you. I think more YouTubers need to STF you. Yeah, I would agree, man. And I don't mean to at anybody, but I think people in the religion and politics space, right, drive the conversation, be a part of it. But people try to include so much stuff that's like fake. It's cartoon animals. It's not researched. It's not considered. It's not considerate of the audience. And it might be boring, right? You get ugly guys like me. Ugly guys like me who can't seem to get it up in terms of the YouTube channel. Donald did do a lot. He did do a lot. He did nothing that's going to stick around, but he did do a lot. Welcome. Welcome to Freak. Welcome to the holy church of putting shit back where it goes. Yeah, and so I think it's amazing when people have built large audiences and they've kept people around and stuff like this, and they've had value-added conversations. They've built these really deep relationships. But if you don't get the actual blended world of, you know, the positive and the negative, you don't get the blended world of what you want to do and what you're not capable of doing. You don't get that. You don't get the blended world where, you know, I don't know. You don't get the actual world of, you just don't get something that looks like the actual world. And so I think it's important to view punditry for what it is, that it's a conversation, it's a topic starter. Punditry is not actually participating in the world of politics unless you specify that's actually the cause of something, or that's what you're going to be doing, you know? And so people take that too lightly, in my opinion, you know? So if you guys are Christian in the stream, or you're Republican, or you're pro MAGA, and you want to talk about your platform and tell me what I got wrong, like, do that, right? Do that. But if I bring up Obamacare, we're going to have that. That's going to be the conversation we eventually have. You know, even on YouTube mobile, I don't mind. I like talking Epstein conspiracy stuff. I like talking military stuff. I like talking, Kamala Harris. I don't mind talking Trump stuff, what Trump is actually doing, what he's saying, when there's logic there. That's all stuff I don't mind doing, and I do frequently on my channel. I do it when I can or when it's appropriate. But yeah, I think people just trying to have a conversation. Like, okay, cool. Somebody had a banned message. It said Melania knows he's going to get hosed. She's protecting herself. Yeah, I think Melania sees Carolyn Levitt trying to communicate this platform. Carolyn Levitt is not very politically experienced. And she's basically misrepresented the president's platform from day one, right? Because the president's platform wasn't about making America great again. It was about exporting violence. It was about exporting violence from our limited manufacturing capabilities and then trying to pay back into that system to get the United States back on the warpath. That's what he promised on day 0, and that's what he's doing on day 483 or whatever day it is. So if Melania's happy with a husband that's a liar and she's happy to go out and lie next to him, she's happy to cover the lie, right? There you go. If you wanted to have a political story and a political couple, now you got it. Florida to New York City, yep, there's your eastern seaboard. That's what you guys are doing. That's what you've been doing. You know how lightweight that is? Very lightweight. You guys are fucking liars. I used to write articles, and you're fucking murderers too, by the way. So I used to write articles and post to BitChute and never got traction though. That's cool. I have a Substack. Yeah, if you guys want to subscribe, I have my own channel. I have a Substack. I like Substack. I've written on Medium before. The organic search and stuff is really bad. You have to have an owned audience someplace else. So if you guys are new to social media, whatever, an owned audience basically means that on your own social media account, you have followers or you have an email list, right? So who knows? Maybe that's something I'll do way down the road is like, if the channel grows to, 15,000 subscribers or 8,000 subscribers, and we're doing other stream formats, horizontal, we're doing open panels, or I'm presenting a news topic or something, putting it out for later, like I might put out a link to collect emails. That would be an owned audience, but the blog site's really bad organic distribution. I think they want you to pay for ads or they want you to distribute it yourself, right? And then that's such a skewed thing because if you're writing, because, you were in activism, Victoria, that's what you told me is that, yeah, you like getting out there. You also like, you become educated about the political topics, the market of those topics. And so, you publish on BitChute or Blue Sky or something, but you have to gain subscribers. So that skews your opinion and the perspective a little bit, I understand that stuff, I get it. Well, whatever. Donald did horrible things. Yeah, he's a murderer. So, Duck, you saw the video of the guy burning down the warehouse. I didn't, Cam. All BS and all fake news. Cool. Trump is the target con man America's never seen. He's the only ran for president to enrich his friends and stay out of jail. Hey, what's up, Pigeon? Yeah, Donald Trump, I think since he started building apartment buildings, he was honest to the people he sold to, honest with contractors, but he would go lie on television. He would just say things that aren't really true or were massive exaggerations in order to appear more successful than he was. And people bought it, right? They wanted him to make everything more expensive in New York City, and he got rich from it. So I don't think that he's someone who's been able to develop like a perspective or an opinion. Donald Trump may not be the first person you would do business with, just because you wouldn't generally know the style that he's going for. He's I wouldn't say opportunistic, but he's exploitative. He's happy to be exploitative to do the easiest thing possible for him, or who knows? I don't know. I'm not Donald Trump, so I shouldn't have said that, but Donald Trump's a murderer. So Donald did nothing. Burden of proof is on you. I just saw Joe Biden in that statement. So Epstein files or something. I'm going to zoom down a little bit. Shout out to some of these people again, you guys, shout out some of the people, you guys in chat again. We got Scott, we got Desaman, we got Levitating Pigeon, we got DeFreak, we got Cameron Flynn, we got Connor. We got another banned message, guys. Let me read this one. He's more than a liar. He's a rapist. He's the R word. Yeah, he's got civil judgments, so there's a strong case that someone saying that Trump is a rapist may have a justified true belief that he is a rapist. Right, that might be true, just given what's publicly available. Dana Carty 6122. Wow, do drugs much? Not particularly. Thank you though. Yeah, not really. So, theory coming to pass, perfect for Christians. Should we slow down? Should we do a Holy Eastern Orthodox stream now for some people? Am I a socialist? Somebody asks. Oops. I used to be in college. I was a big time socialist. I didn't like liberal republicanism. I felt civil society was too narrow or weak. I felt the level of injustice that existed for both the poor as well as for animals and stuff was not good. I was somewhere in there, right? I was somewhat of a bleeding heart. And that's right? I'm kind of back in that place, but I believe in just boring market-based liberal republicanism. And yeah, I think we're able to put back in and people like hold, my form of conservative values is forcing people to be a little more honest if you want to, right? Welcome to the United States. My name's Nathan. I go by Duck Online. Welcome to the United States. If you said something stupid, it's probably the case you said something stupid and then you went out and did it for a while. The stupid thing you said, you're also doing the stupid thing. So, okay, cool. Right? My job is not to be judge, jury, and executioner for that, especially if you didn't break the law. But if there's things you can know about that, or you're curious about someone else's opinion, or you're being dishonest and lying to people, you can see that anywhere. You can see that all the time. People accidentally lying. No, you're not. You're being greedy. You're being told greedy. I got to zoom down a little bit because I'm missing, but thanks guys for all the comments, keeping the chat cool and stuff like that. I'm going to check on the vote too. So far 41% say MAGA can say and do anything. 28% says not even a little. And a very healthy 30% of you guys answered by saying fried lettuce and tomato nuggies. So shout out to you guys. Shout out to the fried lettuce and tomato nugget crew. Yeah, that's one way to solve the tolerance problem in republics and democracies, is to go with the absurdity, or to go with the tomato nuggies. Both great things. I'm not offending him. All I said is that he's a good businessman. Hell yeah, brother. Yeah, you've got cash or assets to protect. You got to do that somehow, and so. Start there, right? Start there. To say what it is. You got cash and assets. Well, what are the different asset classes you're able to invest in? Patrick Bet David would say, well, really smart guys, you want to basically get into your ETFs if you're going to be, trading or whatever, blah, 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 or, get into real estate and really understand credit and debt, I'm Patrick Bet David, right? I'm just very selfish and greedy and egotistical, I go lie to people, It's like, no, you don't actually understand. You still don't understand asset classes, right? I'm 36. I have way less money than you. And I would be the one explaining that to you because you're a dipshit, right? You're selfish and you were happy to lie to people. So you don't understand it now, right? Like, yeah. That's about right. What's the purpose of investing in an asset class? Is it to manage risk? When, right? What risk relative to what? What is the asset class for? What supports it? Where does it come from? What's above it, right? These are questions that someone like Warren Buffett would have asked about a stock or equity, I would imagine. And there's people even way better than him, I imagine there's some like real freaks at Google or Alphabet or Apple who are just absolute nut jobs about some of this stuff. Not everyone, but whatever. Pick your style, but there's definitely a way of knowing. There's a sense of knowing something, and then there's a sense of, well, you just don't know, and you just don't know, first of all. And probably the reason is you just didn't care in the first place. So, my problem. I don't got that problem. I'm not that confused. $80 businesses startup fail. That's way more than that. It's way more than 80%, I think. It's like 95%. It's a ton, right? It's like, you know. And so when you look at the way one way they often do this, it's not the only way, but if you look at like a 5-year graph of how many businesses have a startup capital or, whatever, and then you go out 5 years, you can see how many still exist. And, if you say the success of a business is you're in business and you have money after a year or two, that's cool. Then by year 5 or year 10, it's like basically 0%. It's basically 0%. You get penalized for trying. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff out of your control. And the stuff that's not out of your control, you just start lying about it. Yeah, I talked to a startup founder today, a guy in college. And yeah. And yeah, he lied to me a couple of times accidentally on the call, right? He was telling me about the software company he's starting. It's an AI company. Nice guy, decent guy, all this other stuff. But yeah, told a couple lies, a couple things that weren't that true. So whatever. Yeah. Yeah, indexing isn't a bad pathway, right? You're allowing the economy to steward your capital, your money. So it's just kind of weird if you have, because when you're thinking about the S&P, or like high-rated debt instruments, high-rated bonds or bond funds, these are usually like some of the biggest institutional investors are retirement plans, pension funds. So that's a good way to go. I think there's a lot of people just trying to live their life as it were. And it's like, cool. Yeah. What if I told you that, there's a way to feel less tied down or more connected, and you don't have to sacrifice your financial success? Do you know what that's called? It's called reading a book, dipshit, right? It's called pitching back in. It's called responsibility. So whatever. I think the problem happens is like, if you just think like in material costs, right? This isn't like an analysis, so it's not like information or truth, but yeah, like the reality is, if I let a professional football or soccer team use steroids for 10 years and I was their manager, I was the team manager or something, in 10 years, you're going to have a team that's incapable of adapting or incapable of remaining successful, even if you never get caught, just because of the culture of using PEDs or something like this, And so to imagine that we send people off to the workforce in the US or anywhere, and then you go become a consumer, or you're so smart, you're not a consumer, right? But you're a smart consumer, right? You pitch back in, you've got your values and, it's your money and all this other stuff. You got your spreadsheet or whatever people are saying these days, whatever bullshit it is, But then you go do that for 10 years and then you're like, oh, I get it now, right? I get that I can do some of this stuff a little better. I can think a little more critically about some of this stuff. Okay, cool. So whatever. Yeah. So I don't think there's any purpose in like trying to wrap your head around stuff personally. That's my opinion. But it's like, yeah, you have the chance to gain or earn a slightly more fundamental understanding and you've got time to do that, go do that, right? Go do that. If it's going to help people, it's going to make the world a better place, just to fill your head with some useless nonsense. It ain't that hard, buddy. Isn't that difficult, bud? That's always cool stuff. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, buddy. I mean, Trump said he was going to lower prescription prices 1,500%. Yeah, I would think that you have just the costs of production and shipping, right? You have import-export taxes for the whatever the underlying pharmaceutical ingredients are, and then for the actual production, you'll have all the taxes and stuff on that too, plus, employees, fixed variable costs, all that kind of nonsense, whatever. And so, yeah, I think the fact that producing pharmaceuticals is it can be a somewhat expensive business, but not that expensive, is just something that it's worth bearing consideration in the United States. Whatever. We care about everyone. We care about ourselves first, but then not anyone else, right? And that's antisocial or something. I didn't think so. That wasn't my perception of it. People say we're good enough to do the lazy, sloppy thing, but not good enough to do the other stuff. That stuff bothers me. I don't want to talk about that stuff all the time. I want to talk about other stuff too, right? I used to be a person who liked putting together like vision statements and decks in business. Right. I liked thinking about where the big goal or problem sat in that moment of time. I like to think about ways or just being excited and communicating. Like, that's the honest truth, just being excited and communicating that stuff with people, putting that stuff down really hard. So people had stuff to go work on, right? You have something interesting to go work on that I don't have to manage you to go do, right? I didn't want to manage people. If you're a manager and you hired your best friend or something like that, okay, cool. You don't want to like manage that person. That's fucking stupid, right? That's not respecting the person. It's also not respecting your own job, right? There's two reasons, at least right there. And so like a lot of that stuff, used to be whatever. People can get your own fetishes in business, right? Who knows? I bet a bunch of social medias like that where, your own weird little freaky fetish or what you're actually passionate about goes to your audience a little bit. Could be. And I think the weird side of that is just like, yeah, it doesn't totally necessarily have to be like that. But whatever. And this is the thing, the guy I talked to today, I put out a post on LinkedIn afterwards, and I'm like nobody special, but he showed me his product, but no fucking email, no thank you, no follow-up note or something. Hey, thanks for the time, right? That's all it would take. Thanks for the time, because I appreciate you shared your thoughts about my software product. What a disrespectful little fuck, right? Whatever. Yeah. If you're in college, you should appreciate that. And if you're in college and you didn't spend 2 years designing your product or whatever, you should also appreciate that. Like, I did meet with you because you said in your message, I'm a college student and here's what I'm working on. This is the company and it's, whatever. And so I met with you because you're in college, not because I gave a shit about looking at another AI product that's like 15 other fucking products I've looked at, right? I don't care, right? It's just disrespect, And so like, this is crazy because it's like, yeah, if you guys maybe aren't, everyone here maybe isn't like a entrepreneur or in the tech industry, but it's like, yeah, you guys can understand that, like if you did something valuable or you think it's cool, you want to show people, but you still have gratitude for, someone else's time or something. It's kind of stupid, whatever. I mean, I'm not trying to be like a dogmatist about any of it. Obviously, there's a lot of ways to show people you appreciate them and appreciate their understanding and stuff, but whatever. It gets frustrating after a little while. It gets frustrating. And the reason is because then it takes someone else's time to go think about this like BS or whatever. It's very, very annoying and very dumb. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It does not matter at all, right? Excuses, and all this other BS. China's got more control over Vancouver port than we do. Same goes for most of the mines here now. Cool. Yeah, Vancouver, the big issue when I was there was that it was the taxi medallions people cared about. Last time I was in Vancouver. And of course, the real estate. There are a lot of Chinese real estate investors, people buying both residential as well as commercial residential properties. Yeah, and then like Uber and Lyft taxi medallions were becoming very scarce and very difficult to get, very expensive, if you wanted one. So yeah, you blame the Chinese, you say, hey, this is just this is a fundamental asset that people are gonna see and they're gonna want to buy it like a rental property or something. But you'd be a good mentor for the right people. Yeah, I hope so. I hope so for sure, dude. I guess. I don't know. Like I'm 36, so I think it's cool to hang out on because the point of a live stream is to hang out a little bit. But it's also yeah, I mean, if we can, I think the weird thing is there's people that want this cultural umbrella. They just want to hire you into the right sort of environment. And it's the dumbest part of it, the dumbest or most ignorant, stupid part of it is well, if you yourself wouldn't work in that own system, or you ask yourself, well, what's the actual good thing your business is doing? What are you doing today that makes the world a better place? And then so you go out and there's nothing, right? There's nothing there, but then you go out and tell people about how great your business is, right? How great your business is, how great my community is, how great my constituents are. I'm a politician or something. But I couldn't name something, but I can sure repeat the bullshit lines back to you. I can repeat the BS back to you because of this, Go fart in a cup and smell it. Hey, what's up, Paulpo? 528, good to see you. Good to see you. Capitalism is dead in the US. It's unlimited fiat money given to the chosen corporations with guaranteed bailouts. Yeah, it's definitely scary, right? There's definitely a lot of scary stuff in US capitalism. I think both the debt to cash ratios, how much risk a company carries, and if you get really fancy in the sort of California thinking or New York thinking, how much risk it carries to start a design process or something like this. How much does it actually cost to take to get something out there, right? And a big company like OpenAI isn't that much, I'm sure there's a lot of details and stuff like this, but it doesn't get that much more complicated than that, right? You assess the opportunity size, you can validate it a little bit, and then you're going to talk about how much it costs to actually do the thing, compared to other opportunities, right? There's probably a lot, but you decide that you want to do this thing. And so anyways, if you shed some of the weight and get it down, you can just ask, how much does it cost to design a product in the first place, to design something new, right? Maybe a new chat message, right? You guys say oh, hey, everyone should subscribe to DuckSY. Everyone should go subscribe to Duck because he's like Damascus steel, right? He's very cool. He's very moldable. And you guys say, I'm going to be a capitalist. I'm going to be an entrepreneur for this DuckY subscription like button stuff, I really want to pump the likes up. I want to get the views up because this Ducks fella is going places. He's going places and he's not going to quit. And he's going to bring us up there with him, right? You guys will know where we are. I'll remember some of your names, some of the PFPs. And I'll put out blogs for you guys and stuff. And like I said, maybe an email list. Maybe I'll collect your personal emails. You won't know mine, but I'll know yours. And so that's where we're going, guys, right? And so that's to me, that's the design process like OpenAI and Sam Altman do. And it's also what politics is like, So that's what I would say to you guys. Yeah, pump it up. Hey, what's up, T dot? We got USA #1. Heck yeah. How do you get so smart? I wrote a lot. Yeah, I wrote a lot. I used to go work out during the day, and then every night I would read something and write an essay. It wasn't like fully polished essay. So the benefit I had is I went to college. The benefit I had is I had a political science degree, a bachelor's of science. So I did a lot of liberal arts stuff. And I also did some of the quant stuff. I was happy to take my science requirements, my statistics and research methods classes. Yeah, and the lie is that a lot of people that do go to college do take college very seriously. And so I'm not that smart, but I did, when I got in my 30s and I focused, I had a prefrontal cortex, so I could develop this ability to read something, think about it, and then come to what I believed would be a conclusion about it. I did a lot of that stuff. Yeah, and so if you have Google Documents or you just open a Medium or whatever, who knows? However, or you decide you want to capture a little knowledge and just a little tidbit, who knows? Annoy somebody, text mom and dad. Hey, mom and dad, I'm reading the Shea biography right now, and I just wanted to share about the Colombian rejection of agricultural industrialization, but the acceptance of urbanization and education and institutionalism, and how this impacted the communist prospects in Peru. Mom and dad, or Latvia, of course. This is what I'm texting you about, Dad. So if you do that every night, you're going to be a pretty successful guy. I eat ortolan, no mask. I don't know what that is, but cool. Maybe cool. I don't know. A bubble had to grow through massive deficits while a pyramid scheme comes crashing down. Expand or collapse overnight. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah, everything's ultimately related to primary production, right? When you think of the pyramid and you shift that over just a little bit, the economic mode of analysis, and this isn't definitive, but you would say that, yeah, it is the stuff coming from the ground first. That stuff has to sell or you don't make anything. And then when you make something, you go sell the finished product. That's secondary production. And then somebody's got to do something with all the money, all the services and stuff like that. Financial services, a big one, consulting, accounting, all this kind of stuff to, make these businesses a little more complete. You do that on a consumer level, right? You have consumer banking services and stuff like that. And right, those are new. It used to be, it would be weird. You could buy a house off the Sears Roebuck catalog for $1,000 in the United States back in the day, right? Early 20th century still, So these weren't hicks, right? These were people that knew about the microbiome and bacteria, and they knew that we had biological brains. They knew physics. They were engineers, and they would sell you a house for $1,000, right? That's a banana for scale for sure. It's just how competent and smart people were and how erudite they were. You had already had, a mathematical and logical proofs from people like Leibniz at this time, right? You knew this all over the world by this time. So you would buy a house for $1,000. So that's a great banana for scale. It's one of those things that if you want to culturally, you can pin it down, right? And I think the benefit of that is it lets you get so wide. It also lets you think a little more deeply or critically than someone like me is able to, just about what people might have been thinking and what they think about and stuff now and stuff and, whatever. I don't know. Yeah. And I don't know any of this stuff. So it's called analytical comparison and awareness. I don't know that one. That's way, way beyond. It's just explained all of Canada's current problems. Heck no, dude. Heck no, brother. The other big thing I wanted to talk about on today's stream, the other big one here, is that we don't get the ability in the United States or anywhere else to just say what we want and get away with it. So why do I think this is so important? Why would I ask you to spend a little bit of time and consider it? Well, I think it's the considerate thing to do, because consideration is at the heart of most of American politics, even though you won't find the word consideration in most Democratic writings. Why? Well, because a consideration is of a practical thing, and consideration itself, I believe, is a practical term. In a democracy, if we're talking about theory, we're talking about the academic basis. We're talking about the metaphysics or epistemology, if one exists, for actually producing a society or a social outcome. So you can accept that. You can run from it. You can tell me why it's efficient or inefficient, but eventually we're going to be talking about expediency. And that's a consideration I don't think many people should pass away. I think the actual consideration that we should take is that when we consider other people, that makes you a considerate person, but it does not make your choice that you may go make in the world or your vote considerate itself. It can take a lot of work. And so that's a burden, it's a pressure, but it's a responsibility more than anything. And perhaps that responsibility is why we place a consideration on consideration in the first place, why we may say a person can virtuously be considerate. Or we can just say that people are worth considering. And this is also maybe a better pathway forward. If you say that you have a responsibility or you know that someone that's worthy of consideration can be considered, isn't that a good reason to do so? It may be the case that this is just the type of thinking that doesn't come from Christendom, doesn't come from any world religion, but really comes from our social machinery, that we consider each other deeply. We can consider each other's health, each other's life. We can keep the sanctity and privacy of family, as well as hold those sort of familial truths sacred. And what a splay this creates, what a absolute long-term sort of gain we can make when we start thinking that just considering someone who may be considered connects us geopolitically. Now we can talk about people all over the world, people with all different types of cultures, often who have the same aspirations for political processes like our own. To me, this is such a remarkable truth. It's such a remarkable side of human nature that we are able to stretch biology and at least create this abductive space. Abductive means it requires some form of loose explanation without being a rigorous scientific inference. Terms like Bayesian may come up for some. For others, you don't really need that much. Simply saying that it's coherent to ask about people suffering is something, an accepted truth that we see in American society. I would argue. I would explore the question that why does it make sense that a drone strike in a school in Syria, a deliberate missile attack killing 200 children and teachers, is something that we can easily relate back to our own communities. These are people that suffered and died in another country just like ours because of the actions of an unhinged president. Now, these were people that were both able to be considered and deserving of consideration. And you and I are both people that are considerate. We can offer considerable consideration towards people who are able to be considered. And it seems odd to say that that is even easier once you've been blown to smithereens by a drone with your body buried in a mass grave, because that is what the country and the time afforded you. This is disgusting behavior by our president. This is what our president promised us. And people that miss this simple fact that people all over the world are just like us, and that at some point there are political consequences, sometimes very quickly, for these types of really damaging actions, it puts a lot on a society and a person to say that we haven't been considered. And so that is why I would implore you to consider what can be considered and be considerate, especially towards those that are able to be considered. Thank you. I'm spewing Kamala speak. I didn't think so, dude. I didn't think so. I don't like really getting underneath stuff, but what I would say is that I think you can make all this stuff a lot bigger. You can make this stuff all a lot bigger than, right? That's cool. People like that kind of stuff. They talk about it all the time. Boom, boom, boom. Press the button, press the button. Yeah, this is a competitive advantage. Do you guys want to see what you get for being considerate? Is maybe you also want to consider what a better military is like. Saying that we can start strategy from other places is huge. The big levers are when you can start strategy from things that aren't a ground force, not an army. When you're able to conduct diplomacy independently, and then there's also a known or knowable sort of risk of things like cyber, things like whatever, just a bunch of stuff. You don't want to talk about it. Like, you shouldn't want to talk about it, and you shouldn't be building behind people's back either, right? That's not fair. But also saying that we're going to own the risk, we're also going to own honestly in earnest the responsibility of some of this stuff. What a good way to be. That's a better way to be than to say that we're going to act unhinged and we're going to conduct these large kinetic wars with people that don't want them. To say that you can conduct diplomacy that has some nuance as well as broad understandability and communicability as well as fairness, these are all really good things. Didn't know you can finish a sentence when texting. Heck yeah, brother. Buckle up. Hell yeah, brother. Yeah, thin dimensional, three-dimensional chess, all these types of things, Yeah, Lacan might say that the object right, this sort of missingness, we say we want we want peace or diplomacy, but the reason isn't peace, it's because there's a missing fulfillment in our biology and psychology, you don't get a connection to your world. You don't get a connection to your existence as others is, right? You don't, the as and as, this is something that doesn't exist in politics and diplomacy. There's a tension, a fundamental tension there, and it's difficult to recreate. This is Lacan. This is the la petite object A little bit. And so to say that, well, you conduct diplomacy because you don't have this thing, but then you yourself are unaware, can't identify it, and you cannot guide a process around this, right? You cannot be the thing that you are seeking to do the thing that you wish to create the thing, but it won't, so you get none of it. This is a very sad case and a very sad circumstance. I firmly don't talk about my personal life on the internet that often. Carney should hire you for chief political analyst. Yeah, that's Mark Carney. He's the Canadian guy, right? I'm in the US. So I think I would get hung for treason, actually, hung by the neck until I was dead, just to be totally honest. But yeah, that'd be cool. I think you can live and work in Canada, but I don't think I could go work for a foreign government. I think I would need some serious permit approvals there. Yeah, it would never happen, of course, obviously, but I wish somebody would hire me. That would be super cool. Yeah. All these really smart guys, though, there's people, that's the actual first response, right? That's what you should say in an interview, actually, isn't that you know all this stuff, but you say, oh, these people know a lot more than I do, right? They're very educated on the piece parts, and, they've got opinions, and they've got the opinions of the organization you're working within, right? And they're eager to define those things over a large period of time, right? You would have short-term goals, which then themselves lead to the cultural, sort of the culture and understandability of the organization itself, as well as agility, right? That's how I would do that. That's my first seeming about it. I would go for a walk, truthfully. I would go for a walk. If you've afforded it to me, I would go for a run as well. But I would definitely go for a walk, and that's what I would tell you on that first call. I'd think about it for a couple minutes and say, wow, if I'm the chief, then there must be sub-chiefs, right? Sub-chieftains, Wow. That's what I'd tell them. I'd say, wow, this is a really crazy opportunity. There's so many different ways to do it, And I'm learning all the time about all those different ways to do it. That's what I'd say. I'd say, you got to have people that want to connect to realism, right? They want to connect to realism and define the state's interests. What a big priority is saying that, look, our first responsibility, if this is responsibility, right? Because you're not putting that role in intelligence or something, right? It's not a DOD role, whatever Canada has, ain't a Royal Mountie doing this. That's for sure. Checking your ID at the border, the Royal Mounties are. So I would say something like this. I would say, well, our first responsibility is to realism, of course, because there's so many people here, and they're all going to say the same thing. They're going to say, did you do it? I can say I did. And the second thing that I would say is, well, oh boy, my phone's going to crash out soon, I do believe. But second thing I would say, no, we're good. Second thing I would say there is I would say, well, we got all these other people that we can help with this. And guess what they're going to say? They're going to say, hey, did you do it? And I could say, yeah, we sure did, bucko. We sure did, big feller. We went ahead and we worked on it for you because you asked, you were curious about it. And so now you don't have to be curious because we did it. Nice job, everybody. So if Mark Carney hired me and I got all the permits and process approvals, I'd say, Canada, yeah, here's realism, here's neo-Hobbesianism. And guess what you're going to hear me saying in 20 years? Unless I learn otherwise, you're going to hear me saying the same exact thing. Did I say that in the first place? Guess what? And here's the other thing is I would be super thorough about it. I would find the right way to be super thorough for the Smart Carney fellow, right? I would say, hey, I've heard a bunch about you guys. What I know is in Canada, you give some of your politicians crack cocaine. Yeah. Respectfully, I've heard that. I don't know. I didn't see it. I didn't do it. Who knows? There's always deep fakes, and I don't know the feller. Even if it's not a deep fake, I don't know the feller. Anyways, that's not what a chief political science does, is pointing accusations and fingers about crack cocaine and hookers. Those are things I wouldn't do. Rob Ford, I believe. Mark Carney, this fellow, he'd get pretty excited about it. We'd get up in the tiff. Guess what I'd do? I'd be able to call my friends in the United States and say, hey, what do you guys got that's like this, right? We want to go do some stuff together and all this other stuff. I don't want to talk about it anymore. It's not thorough enough. I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, okay, that's probably the right answer because those are serious people, right? But I never know. And then what I would do is I'd hire a pornographer if I was this chief political science guy, and I'd say, yeah, you guys got Pornhub down in the United States. You got the different Tubes channels. You got OnlyFans, Fansly. You got all types of ways that people can consume naked women and naked men. Right? This is what one does. And so the thing I would go do after this chief political science role and defining realism is I'd make a musical, except instead of a musical, there would be cum everywhere. Who knows? And if my government was socialist, of course it would be accessible and free. That's part of the democratic mandate. That's what socialism is. If I lived in the United States, I'd have to make a buck, and I'd probably give the majority of it or all of it back to the government because they're the ones who invested in it in the first place. So you get realism, you get neo-Hobbesianism, and then you also get cum everywhere. I believe that's the way that story goes. Carney's taking credit for projects that got approved upwards of a decade ago. Wow. That's quite some time, man. Let's see. I think someone's message got blocked. So isn't Pornhub Canadian? Somebody liked the cum idea. I thought you guys would be more excited about the Africa thing, the neo-Hobbesianism. Crisis politics. I didn't think so. They got yelled at. In Arizona, you're not even allowed to get on unless you show them a driver's license. I checked. I'm a 36-year-old male, so on the one hand, I can do what I want. On the other hand, I don't have to talk about it. My third hand, I don't really use those types of websites very often or ever anymore. But as it turns out, I did check. And indeed, they said, you have to get on a VPN. I did check that too. And indeed, you can still get on through a VPN, but that's just how the world works. I'd never used Opera browser before, but then there we were. There it was. And so the world works in mysterious ways. Yeah, and so this Mark Carney fellow, if he hired me, he'd probably ask a question like that too. Let me make sure this question's going through. But yeah, this Mark Carney fellow, he certainly would ask. He'd say, you're going to be a chief political scientist. I want to know if you're doing the hand dance on your own time. And I would say, well, the world works in mysterious ways, Prime Minister Carney, but given the proper processes and approvals are in place, I think what you'll find is I downloaded no less than 2 apps to use a pornographic website. And I can't even tell you if that's the reason why I did it, but certainly I did it. And so that's the responsibility portion. And I don't understand fully why you're asking, so I will be quiet and wait to continue. Curiously, that's also how I use that VPN website and the pornographic website. Hey, you didn't give me instructions yet, lady. Yeah, that feller sure looks excited, but he doesn't really seem like he wants me to be excited yet. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. That's the great thing about pornographic websites is the ads refresh. So you got all this time to learn what people are making and what they want to sell you while you're waiting for your porn stars to tell you when to go. Duck porn. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would do that. I'd rather be a chief political scientist. That sounds pretty cool. Who knows? I'd be a team leader. I'd say, Mark Carney, here's my goal. I want to have 15 of them fellers this year, just like that Pornhub thing. And next year I want 20, and that's also just like that one Pornhub thing. But don't ask me to do more because I haven't seen beyond that on those websites. 15 of these fellers, that's going to be good enough. We'll have half of them doing research and half of them doing the data stuff, right? And then I'll come to you and I'll tell you when we need a little computer thingy or something. Somebody will tell me all about that. Get ourselves a deep learning model. Heck yeah. Why would you get yourself a deep learning model? I don't know. I want to build a new internet, Mark Carney. You hired me to be a chief political scientist. Why don't I just build an academic agent internet? We can go crawl around and do into each other's buttholes. Once again, just like that Opera browser in this pornographic website. I've seen that too. You know? Respectfully, of course, more respectfully than I've stated it. That would be a great starting point for us, Prime Minister Carney. What did you stumble into? Someone was asking about my pornography habits as well as my the depth of my knowledge in political science. Turns out one is accessible and easy to communicate, and the other is fun to think about, so here we are. I'm not Canadian either. So I clarified that. I clarified I'm an American who would be pseudotypically applying for proper permits from 3-letter agencies and state departments in order to go help another country with their country's problems. Curiously, they turn into our problems as well. I wonder how that works. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, or ma'am, or person. I don't know you. Da, 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 da. Oh, yeah, buddy. What time is it? You guys know how that goes? You guys ever been on a YouTube channel? Somebody just takes a step back and they're like, what time is it? I don't even know. That can be like the new YouTube stick, actually. That'd be funny. Just like not like even close to like whatever, OF girls, people doing OF or whatever. But just random streamers doing not actual adult work, but the stuff that is like super far in between, is far down and up in between like actual adult scenes. Yeah. Put the pizza box on the counter. Like that kind of stuff. Did you remember to lock the door? Canada, we call it passive aggressive. Oh, cool. I don't know what I did. Did I mess something up? It can take 5 years to get a permit when building a house. You guys don't have tract housing in Canada? You guys don't have people building, 20 homes at once or something? 20 houses at one time? 20 or 50? Some number, X number of houses. X gonna give it to you. All right, I'm at 2% battery life. This was a lot of fun. Thanks everyone who voted in the poll. Thanks for everyone who hung out. It's good to see everybody. Hope you guys had a great Friday night. Yeah, I might go check on one of my buddies' streams over at Mega Bloodbath Debates. I'm not gonna bother with the raid or anything like that because there's 4 of us, but yeah, it'll be cool to see you guys next time I go live or whatever, and have a good week. Maybe I'll see you guys around on the tubes as well. Take care.